Welcome to this week's edition of Freedom and Prosperity Radio, the weekly radio news magazine that we put together here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy, an organization I like to refer to as a do tank. You hear a lot of people have think tanks, but we are an organization that is actually, through our association with great folks like our first guest, have been able to get substantive legislation introduced and passed in Virginia. And with that, we welcome on President of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, Philip Van Cleave, back to the program. Philip, how are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm hanging in there. How about you, Joe?
I thought I had seen the craziest, and then they start talking about background checks for bullets, and waiting periods are back again, and one gun a month, and all these things either are resurrections or extrapolations on top of already crazy ideas. From where you sit at the Virginia Citizens Defense League, the preeminent gun rights, gun owners association in Virginia, how much further do you think they can go?
Well, they're going to keep trying until they can disarm us. They say, "Oh, nobody wants your guns," but yeah, they're trying to take away our guns. I mean, they're lying right to our face. It's amazing. Oh, we don't want your guns, but we're gonna ban all of these. Well, we don't want your guns. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, if you say it, that means something. Where if you actually do it, I'm supposed to ignore that.
I think when they used to say it, they meant, oh, you can keep them, but you have to take them apart. And it's like the New York laws where you can have a gun, but you have to disassemble it when you're at home, and you can't really take it out of the house, but you can have it. Nobody says you can't have the weaponry, but it's ineffectual. It's just a pile of metal parts, in most of those cases.
Or if they control the ammo, you can have a gun, but you can't have any ammo for it, but you can have the gun.
Yeah.
That's their thinking, too.
COVID has done a number on that as well. I understand that's driving a lot of the ammunition shortage, that plus the boom in gun purchases. Every month I talk to gun shop owners, and they're saying record numbers of people, many of whom sheepishly admit they never had any idea how intense or thorough the background checks were, just tipping their hands that they were from the progressive left at some point or another. But it's tough. I mean, I bought my wife a .22 Ruger, and I can't find bullets for it.
Yeah, it's I started stocking up a long time ago. I've been through this before, but not like this. This truly is very much more intense than anything else. During the Obama years, we had a couple of runs on ammunition and guns and stuff like that. But this is in a whole class by itself, because it's not just a spurt for a few months. It's ongoing. This is, and I don't know when the end is in sight on this. As long as they're the thing is, it's hilarious. They supposedly want to get guns out of the hands of, they want to get guns out of all of our hands. Really, what they want to do. They make up, it's about crime. Oh, baloney! It's not about crime. So what do? They talk about, we're going to ban guns. So what do they end up doing? They end up increasing gun ownership by 8 million people earlier this year, and it always does that. Every time they talk about pushing gun control, all they do, the gun manufacturers are laughing. It's like, great, yeah, keep talking about this stuff, and they keep selling like mad. They don't get it. They don't they're dumber than a box of rocks.
Well, and I imagine membership at the Virginia Citizens Defense League has not suffered.
Oh, no, none of the gun organizations are suffering at all. But it's unfortunate, and as many people have woken up and said, whoa, maybe I should do something to protect my gun rights. There's still a lot of people out there that are sound asleep. I know that because we have 700,000 permit holders, concealed handgun permit holders in Virginia, and our membership is not near 700,000. It should easily be that number and more. It's more like 38,000 right now, 58,000 on our email alert system. So there's still a whole lot of people out there that are letting other people carry their weight, or are just so totally out of it they're not paying attention, and that's not good.
Well, let me focus on that for a second, because we had so many things going on through Richmond and Washington. Joe Biden and his ridiculous statements about the Second Amendment and nothing in the Bill of Rights is absolute. I want to get there, but I want to focus on membership and responsibilities and a shadow ban, a shadow assault on firearms, because defending yourself with a firearm is one of those rare cases where you really are guilty until proven innocent. So membership in VCDL, certainly, understanding what you have to do, it is so important. If you ever, heaven forbid, have to defend yourself with your firearm, you're going to find yourself as the accused one.
Yeah, the way it works is you have to basically admit to homicide. Now, homicide isn't murder. Homicide is killing another human being. It doesn't necessarily mean murder. Homicide can be justified, but if it's not a really clear-cut case of self-defense, then basically you admit to you admit to homicide, and then you argue that it was required.
Mm-hmm.
It was
justified,
or worst case, it was excusable. Justified is where you were completely innocent. Somebody attacked you, they tried to kill you, you ended up hurting them or killing them. That's justified. Excusable is where maybe you got into a verbal shouting match with somebody that cut you off in traffic or did this or did that. And then suddenly it turns deadly when they pull a weapon on you, and you have to retreat, and then they won't stop, and you end up killing them. That's considered or excusable, because you were kind of part of the problem, but at the end of the day, you were trying to not get involved to the degree of lethality, and you were dragged into it. So it's always better never to get in a shouting match with anybody. Just suck it up, smile, and go about your way.
Well, and then, when we see due process in such a challenge, we listen to the Dudley Do-Rights that are elected to office that have their own private security filings anyway, and we saw how that turned out in the incursion at the Capitol. I'm reading more and more about this private security officer that was defending a senator's office that wound up killing that one activist. Why was he even in the Capitol with some of the things in his background? But in any event,
so I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been reading the same thing. Yeah, it's like, what? And they let him go. As far as, oh no, you didn't commit murder. I mean, it's very interesting, considering he even had threats of killing Trump people. So, and then he carried it out.
In the hallways of the U.S. Capitol, with a senator that I believe has, espoused gun control frequently, and perhaps even disarming or disfunding the police there. The idea that, you could get due process in a world where Maxine Waters might show up out in front of your courthouse, depending on who you wound up in an argument with, or you had to wind up defending yourself from. The judge himself is recorded saying, "Yeah, she may have handed you a mistrial." It's like, whoa, what? That is how the court system should work. But what happens to somebody here in Virginia if Maxine Waters or Tim Kaine's son shows up with Antifa and starts protesting outside your court hearing?
Yeah, you can feel the pressure being put on the court, or even what's going on in Michigan or whatever, Minnesota.
With the police
pressure
officer
there to you better convict or else. Well, wow, there goes the court system if they bend to that kind of pressure. They say, well, we got to convict you, otherwise there's going to be riots. So sorry, you didn't do it, and we can't find evidence, but we're going to convict you. I'm not saying that's the case. I don't know what the evidence is. I haven't been following the case closely. But all I know is that kind of pressure, threats of violence, if the court doesn't, and that won't be the first time. I think you probably remember Los Angeles burning back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, with Rodney King. Yeah, absolutely.
Rodney King. Court trial didn't go the way some people thought. So, all right, let's kill a bunch of people and let's burn down buildings. That was where the Koreans defended their neighborhoods from the rooftops with rifles, and nobody bothered that area.
Right, and that quietly went away. Philip Van Cleave, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, is on with us. And sort of, part of the due process question is, center square. Nobody has so far given me a good answer as to this red flag stuff that seems to be, even Republicans are like, well, that's a common sense kind of thing, but nobody's showing me where the due process is in this. It's an emergency. We got to convict first and ask questions later, kind of thing. How is this American?
No, it's not, and that's always the creed. I forget if it was Thomas Jefferson who said that, but basically paraphrasing, he said, "Yeah, that's a necessity is always the creed of tyrants." Well, we've got to do this to you because we have no choice, and that's what you hear over and over. Well, we don't want to do this, but we have no choice. Well, baloney, you have a choice. And red flag doesn't get any treatment for the person. There's no guarantee anyhow. The guy that shot up FedEx, he had been red flagged up in Indiana, but he still ended up being able to purchase guns. They didn't get him any treatment. He's still running around, obviously crazy.
Yeah.
So they didn't do, red flag doesn't do anything for that. It leaves this dangerous person walking around. They just took his guns away, and you think you got all of them. Maybe you didn't, or maybe he can get more. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's not guns. Hey, what about the guy with the bomb, right? That blew up, what was it, Tennessee, where he blew up his van and took out a good portion of some buildings? What about that?
Timothy
okay?
McVeigh.
Did he use a gun?
We just had the anniversary of Oklahoma City, and Timothy McVeigh in a big U-Haul truck full of fertilizer and diesel fuel. You can weaponize a lot of things.
You can weaponize anything. It's the person that you've got to disarm. I mean, not disarm, but get help for.
Right.
You're taking away their tools isn't going to make them a good person all of a sudden. That doesn't solve the mental issue. Like I say, we want to blame the tool. Well, first of all, they want to get rid of the tool, so they're going to blame it for everything. They can make it up no matter how stupid. But, you can take a hammer and build a house for a homeless person, but you can also take that very same hammer and beat them to death with it. It's not the hammer's fault, the hammer didn't do good and it didn't do evil. But, for a hammer, everybody goes, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Well, who'd be stupid enough to blame the hammer? But they do this with guns all the time, and somehow that's not stupid anymore.
Well, let me ask you that, because even Parkland, Florida, the kid had raised, problems 14 times. The president's letter of intent, of advice from the administration said we need to get down the statistics on school to prison pipeline. So nobody said anything about this kid. So, and with some controversy, I count the kid that did the shooting in Parkland as a victim of it as well, because, 14 times he became, at least apparent to local authorities that he could use a little attention, and he never got it. And I find that to be heartbreaking. And Austin Deeds here in Virginia, Cree Deeds' son, people who need attention and, can't get it. How do we fix that aspect? I know a lot of soldiers don't seek help when they come back because they're afraid of their rights being curtailed because they have the scarlet letter. Can we come up with a way that says, listen, seeking help is not a permanent end all. You're never going to have free speech rights or Second Amendment rights protected anymore. Get the help, and once you've gotten the help, you can go on with life. Yeah,
and then the danger in this too is that they've tried this before, and so far they haven't succeeded. But they have tried in the past to say, well, even if you voluntarily go in completely on your own, you'll lose your gun rights. That would absolutely discourage anybody from getting help. You don't want to discourage it. You want to encourage it voluntarily. Somebody knows there's a problem and they haven't, they're not being committed, but they know they've got a problem. They want to get help. You would never want to discourage that. You'd be out of your mind. But they've actually tried that. That's how far this stuff, and I guarantee they'll try it at some point again. Maybe they'll succeed. And
the political correctness even led to the Smith Mountain Lake shooting. The fellow had been fired by 2 other newsrooms prior to working at the station in Roanoke. Because people are like, listen, he's got anger issues. So here's somebody, again, who could have used some help. And in our political correctness, we turn the other way and say, oh, if we don't see the problem, then the problem doesn't exist. That's where we're really failing ourselves, is when somebody needs help, we don't get it for them.
Exactly. Yeah, this is clearly, when you go around and you suddenly decide you want to murder a bunch of people, you're not normal. That's
Right.
not something you and I and all your listening audience ever thinks about going out just murdering somebody or a whole bunch of people. They don't think of that. They don't think about shooting up a school or anything else. You've got to be off your rocker. You can't be normal and do that kind of thing. So yeah, if we could get to the root cause, get people treatment when they need it, and stop drugging kids while they're in school, giving them Ritalin and everything, which warns that it can cause all kinds of mental issues when their brain is still forming. That's why we're creating these little monsters that are going around shooting up schools. That didn't happen when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s. That didn't happen. There were plenty of guns around then. In fact, you could even bring a gun to school and, put it in the closet if you were going to go hunting after school. All that, there was no problem.
Right.
Because it wasn't the gun. And it wasn't the kids. It was when the brain started getting drugged and all this other shifts in culture. It's people. We're the weapon.
Well, and that's what I wish we would do a better job on, and that's where my displeasure with any politician, Republican or Democrat, that says, "Oh, well, we have to get the guns off the street." Well, no. We have to get the hurt, broken people the help they need, and then the guns just are inanimate objects. I think Ted Nugent did that once. He put a rifle in a chair and just ran a live YouTube channel for days, and gun didn't do anything wrong to anyone. Philip,
making fun of that. Go ahead.
Well, I want to go to President Biden here.
Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
So nothing I'm going to do violates the Constitution. But if I did, I want to go to that last bit first. This is what Madison was afraid of when he finally, he and Patrick Henry came to their agreement and they wrote the Bill of Rights. It survived. This is its 230th anniversary this year, Philip. But this is the kind of attitude of, I'm the one who gave you that right and I can take it away, that Madison was concerned with happening when he put it down on paper.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think if it wasn't there, they would still claim you didn't have it.
True.
It's a mixed bag.
We wouldn't have made it 230 years.
Yeah, and that whole concept of no right is absolute. They throw that out, and what they always say right after that is, well, you can't yell fire in a theater. How many times have you heard that as the argument, as an example, right?
Mm-hmm. Always.
And my counter to that is, yes, but they don't tape your mouth shut because you might yell fire in the theater. Plus, it is perfectly legal to say fire in a theater. It's only if you were to yell it in such a way as to attempt to incite fear in people.
Right.
Well, then you've actually done something with intent to cause fear, and then your free speech disappears. But we don't do that with guns. We either take them away because you might do something, or you're in trouble even though you haven't actually done something. The equivalent would be you carry a gun anywhere you want, but if you pull it out and brandish it to scare people, now you've committed a crime, and I'm fine with that.
Well, and because then that becomes the intent, like you said. I've often argued, and I really get into it with my, office holding friends. I can yell fire in a crowded theater. I'm also liable for, inciting the riot, unless, of course, there was actually a fire, and then I'm a hero for yelling fire in a crowded theater. So that's
yeah. So it's a false analogy, and they love that one. There's other things like that you've got to look at, because everything else out there you have to have some kind of intent or have actually done some kind of harm. Mm-hmm. And it's only guns that we say, oh well, because you could, we're going to preemptively disarm you.
What is the VCL, got going on right now? You mentioned your membership. I know it's grown quite a bit, needs to grow a lot more, VCDL.org. You're still able to hold the events. Are you still doing your events virtually? I know you've had tables at some of the gun shows that have been able to take place.
Yeah, we're doing tables at gun shows and some other events whenever we can. We have a monthly meeting the third Thursday on YouTube of every month at 8 p.m. We have a virtual membership meeting. which will probably continue even once everything opens up and we can start to have physical meetings again. We'll probably keep the virtual up. That allows us to have members from wide areas in the state participate, as well as even people from out of state. We get a lot of that too, people from everywhere from Michigan to Florida checking in as well that are very interested in what's going on in Virginia. So we're doing that. Pretty soon I'm going to start grading the legislators on the last session that we just finished up as far as how they voted on gun rights. I wanted to wait till all the bills had settled down, and now they've all settled. So I'll soon be starting to do grading on that for people. With elections coming up November 2nd, and boy, everybody needs to vote November 2nd. Don't miss it. We can't miss any more elections. We can't take any more of these bad politicians. We cannot do it.
Yeah, I mean, a mediocre Republican is better than a mediocre Democrat, and we've seen them, legislate like their hair is on fire, Philip. The progressives this year have, their party platform is "Here, hold my beer. You got to see this." And people ask me why they're doing it. I said it's so that come August and September of 2022, when the average Virginian finally will start thinking, I wonder who I should vote for, they'll have forgotten the things that Abigail Spanberger or Jennifer Wexton or Elaine Luria have supported and just be thinking, oh, their ads say that they're, middle of the road and they've fought Nancy Pelosi on these things, and they won't remember what's been going on in this part of 2021, Philip. What about the Virginia General Assembly, though? The Republican Party has promised 100 participants, 100% of all the seats will have a Republican running for it. I think they're up to 90 so far. Have they reached out to you? Have any of these new candidates reached out to the VCDL to talk to them, to talk to you about the things that they need to be standing up for in terms of gun rights in Virginia?
Well, we're surveying all the candidates. In fact, we've had a candidate forum. We had the Attorney General candidate forum last week. It's a virtual online. Anybody can watch this as we ask some tough questions to the various candidates. And we've got I think it's tonight is the Lieutenant Governor version. So it starts, you have to look, I think it starts at 8 p.m. tonight, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the Lieutenant Governor.
Well, you have to tune in. VCDL.org. Is it VCDL.org or through, I know you got deplatformed for a while on Facebook.
Yeah, this will be up on YouTube.
Okay.
And there's a VCDL channel up there. So.
And I was with a bunch of the Attorney General candidates this past weekend, Philip, and I said to all of them, listen, I don't, as much as the governors grab all the media attention, I personally, as a commentator, feel that the AG's race may be the most important or more important, certainly, than the AG's position has ever been in Virginia when it comes to protecting our rights from Washingtonian incursion. Am I overstating it from where you sit?
No, I tell you what, the last 8 years have really woken me up to just how important the AG's position is. The Attorney General can decide not to go. For example, if a locality violated a law like Fredericksburg was for a while, where they were buying up guns, they call it a gun buyback, but they never owned the guns. It's a gun buy-up. And then they were destroying them as opposed to offering them for auction to gun dealers. It would have taken the Attorney General to have standing to come in to say, no, Fredericksburg, that's not the law. You cannot do that. But we didn't have that kind of Attorney General. We still don't. And it was, it's gun stuff? And they're doing something against gun owners? Well, that's okay. And then, writing amicus briefs for various court cases. And, this Attorney General, if it's a gun control court case, boy, he's got an amicus brief flying out the door. If it's pro-gun, if it benefits Virginians, nope, he's nowhere to be found. Moths flying around, just not there. So it's a very important position. And because they can also bring pressure to bear on quite a few things. So yeah, very important, much more important than I'd really given credit for until I saw what a bad attorney general could do.
Yeah, so it's something that everyone needs to be engaged in, find out more, and be involved. Philip Van Cleave is the president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League. And the gun bans, and sadly, we handed the gun grabbers, on the anniversary of the Virginia Tech shooting, that shooting at the FedEx facility, as you mentioned, a fellow whose own mother had raised a red flag about him, and that didn't work out so much, handed the opportunity for Senator Mark Warner to say this.
In this country. So your reaction this morning?
Well, unfortunately, it appears that we have become immune to these tragedies.
I think he meant desensitized
the whole
to it.
notion of elected officials offering thoughts and prayers and doing nothing is actually fairly sickening. Yesterday, my fellow Virginian Tim Kaine and I introduced what we call the Virginia Plan. It was 6 bills. They may not have been everything gun rights groups wanted or gun control groups wanted, but we thought Virginia was a fairly good microcosm of the United States. We've passed legislation at our state level to do universal background checks to make sure that people who've got mental health issues may not have access to firearms, to make sure we close the boyfriend loophole, to make sure you can only purchase 1 handgun a month.
Do any of those things, and I can't find a shooting incident where any one of those bits of legislation would have changed the outcome of it, Phil? Have I missed one?
No, it's all baloney, and that's what infuriates me when I hear both of our senators are horrible. I mean, they don't represent the state. When it comes to gun rights, if you're a gun owner, forget it. And him saying, well, it didn't give everything to the gun rights or the gun control people. We didn't want any of that. So no, it doesn't. We don't want any of it. So we don't want any of it in Virginia. We're going to be busy repealing all the stuff that he's trying to put in federally. We'll be busy trying to repeal that and get that out of Virginia. All of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. None of it helps. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all part of a step towards villainizing gun owners and gun rights and guns. And we have to stand up to it. We need to get these officials like him out of office. They are not representing us. He could move to New York. They would love him up there. But him and Kane both, they'd be much better off up there.
I grew up in
still honor the Constitution.
I grew up in New York, Philip. He'd have to register as a Republican in New York. I mean, But anyway, so let me ask you, because this goes back to what I've seen with gun shop owners who have had so many. I presume folks who may have voted for Mark Warner at one point or another, walking in and buying their first handgun or a rifle, and then having to go through the background check, and you can see that these politicians have laid out a scenario where an awful lot of people thought you just walked in, bought a gun, walked out, and they had no idea that for the simplest self-defense handgun purchase you could make, you've got quite a bit you have to do for a background check. And we've been talking about this for years. There already are all kinds of background checks. The gun show loophole is a myth. All of these things. The 1 gun a month law doesn't save anyone's lives either.
No, well, the thing is, the media has been a part of this too. They let them play up all these lies over and over and over. So somebody that's really not into it, and sort of from a distance, says, "Yeah, I don't know about guns. I don't know one. I don't think I need to." And oh wow, you can just go in and walk into a gun show and just buy all the guns and everything you want, no back. Oh wow, that's they believe all this stuff. And then I love it like you do. There was in California, they had a big rush for guns at one point because of some crime issues. And so many people were shocked that they had to wait 10 days. I need the gun now. Well, sorry.
Yeah.
You voted for politicians that put in a 10-day waiting period. So if you're still alive in 10 days, come back and get your gun.
Yeah, they're marching down your street right now. But so where are we? What things have the Eileen Fillercorn, or as I call her, EFC, and Dick Saslaw? I know they keep trying to talk about special sessions. It seems like we're really teetering on becoming like Pennsylvania, where our General Assembly just is in session constantly, and often late into the evening voting themselves pay raises. But that's another matter. But every time I turn around, another politician is saying we need to call a special session to do something about this.
Yeah, that's a real problem. We've never really needed to do that of this magnitude. It seems like it's like they discovered a new toy in the toy box. If they're costing us a fortune to send all these people down for these special sessions, I don't think they're going to be doing any special sessions on guns this year. What you said earlier is absolutely dead on. They were very quiet about guns this year. Last year, there were over 60 gun control bills alone in the General Assembly. This year, and some of those were really, really, ban and confiscate guns kind of bill was even included in that. And this year, there were 11. Mm-hmm. And of those 11, most of them were very, very mild. And they're doing what you suggested. They're keeping the gun control Democrats are keeping their heads down, hoping that gun owners would be so stupid as to forget what they did to us last year. And believe me, if gun owners forget what they did to us last year and they get power again for another 2 years, Katie barred the door in 2022. Mm-hmm. You better hang on to your guns, because they will then feel totally emboldened to really go for the whole enchilada. So, again, the elections this year are critical for Virginians.
Well, we watched this, in our flagship city of Charlottesville. They enacted their own. They were given permission by the General Assembly, as many municipalities were, to have special gun restrictions there, including in the public housing areas of the city. Yet there has been an epidemic. Even the police chief had to say, this is, every month we set a new record for shooting incidents, especially around our public housing projects. And it just seems yet again to be, we're going to ban guns in an area, and that's where the crime gravitates to.
Yeah, and of course, it's not the neighborhood where the politicians live, so they give it lip service. They don't really care about those neighborhoods. I mean, it's clear they don't, because they're busy disarming everybody. The good people that are in those neighborhoods that have to live there because they're not rich like the politicians, they're the ones that are left out with basically defenseless. We don't want cheap guns. Now we don't want accurate guns, according to Biden, or I believe it was him that said, this arm brace will make the gun much more accurate. Oh, well, heaven forbid we have an accurate gun. I mean,
right.
So they're busy. They're doing this stuff. Yes, and the people that pay for it, and they do pay for it. Even look at Arlington. We told they were the first one in the state to say, we can do gun control, so we're going to go for the whole enchilada. And they did. And we warned them. We said, this is a quiet area up here. You don't have much problems now, but if you do this, you're going to start having problems. And sure enough, literally the month after they passed that, it was in effect, their shootings went up, and now it's up over 40%. They've called the BATF, and they're trying to work with them to figure out some way to get the shootings down. Well, they threw gasoline on the fire, and they were amazed that the fire got bigger. How did that happen? Maybe we should throw more gasoline. It's just these are the idiots that are running government.
Well, and that's the problem, is they see a gasoline fire, and they're thinking, you know what, more gasoline will help that. Philip Van Cleave, President. The most chilling part, though, of President Biden's address the other week, to me, was something that you and I have talked about in the past, and I've talked about with other folks who've looked into climate change as well. Here it comes. We've desensitized the population to public health emergencies and what tyrannical powers we can give our government, especially in terms of Governor Northam, who has no end date on his executive takeover of the Virginia government. It was a public health crisis of guns. Mm-hmm. And there he was, the president of the United States, calling gun violence a public health crisis. It's gone from being the theoretical, you and Philip Van Cleave and Joe Thomas talking about it, to President of the United States said it's a public health crisis. Is there enough public realization that it's not, that we could push back against it, or will we say, sure, it's worse than COVID. Let's give the government more power?
I think I think most people still understand that there's no way that a gun is anything bad in terms of a health crisis. That's baloney. It's people, mostly gangbangers, killing other gangbangers, or people committing suicide, which they can do with or without a gun. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I like to point out is crime is a disease, and guns are the inoculation against that disease. That, if you want to look at, if you want to treat crime like a health crisis, then guns are the vaccine.
Oh, I see. So you're like Dr. Fauci. I thought I'd give you a laugh, but you're right, because this is what and people always think of the wild, wild west as this place where all these liberty-loving people went. Really, the 19th century Old West was where most of the modern gun grabbing went on, where sheriffs decided, check your iron at the town line, and they started gun confiscations 200 years or 150 years ago.
It's all about controlling people. It always has been, always will be, and that's why we as free Americans have to make sure that we don't let them ever take our guns.
Is it heartening to you to see states, and I can't remember, there's 2 or 3 that are actually voting on legislation that would, put into function constitutional carry, where you can just own a gun and you don't have to go through the government to get permission to?
Right. Oh, yeah. So we've tried that here. We have constitutional open carry in Virginia. We've had that forever, but we don't have constitutional concealed carry. If you're going to put on a coat, then suddenly, because you're wearing a coat, you now have to get training and you have to get a background check, and I'll just put on a coat. And these other states are saying no. If you're owning the gun legally, who cares how you carry it? And that's the way it should be. So we've been pushing that for years, but have been unable to get it through. So you keep trying, and we'll keep trying. I think we had a bill this year, even though we knew it wouldn't make it. There it was, and we just keep pushing it.
And it's got to be there, and hopefully we can get some control over the General Assembly and, get these bills heard, because I think some of these bills were protected by, parliamentary procedure in the Virginia General Assembly that had, some of the key committees so unbalanced to the progressive left. I was looking at rulings that were 9 Democrats to 3 Republicans, and I'm like, how is that a fair committee for a Senate that's almost evenly split 21-19? Yeah.
Well, again, that's when they do this, they don't realize that they're setting themselves up to, when the shoe goes on the other foot, they're setting themselves up to be kicked the same way they were kicking the other party. So, you're better off to keep things very balanced and always do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And that golden rule, that seems totally lost on the legislature.
Yeah,
they don't get it.
And one of the things they did that restricted is to get your concealed carry permit. You used to be able to take the test online for it. And go through the training online. Now you have to get it from a state, authorized trainer. I did anyway. I was at the Fishersville Gun Show to get mine from a state trooper, retired. So I felt comfortable. I'm more tangible that way. I don't learn well online, Philip. But now that's the only way you can get your concealed handgun permit.
So let's say that let's say we've got a woman out there whose husband has turned violent, and he has threatened to kill her, and she absolutely knows that he will kill her, and she's meanwhile gotten away from him, and if he finds her, she's dead. She needs to immediately start carrying a gun. Well, now, tough luck. Last year at this time, she could have gone online, got the training done, at least got some basic understanding of gun safety and training, and then applied immediately for her permit. Now there's another week or 2 weeks delay till she can get into a class to get that job done. That could be the difference between life and death for somebody. They don't care. General Assembly, whatever.
Well,
it's frustrating.
The Dudley Do-Rights would say, well, raise a red flag on him. Well, that doesn't matter. If you take his guns away, now he's just PO'd and he's bigger than you. What is it they say? All God created all humans equal. Samuel Colt enforced it, or something like that.
Yeah, and on that on the lady's grave, it could say, "But my husband was red flag, so I thought I was safe."
Right, because that always works. Philip, again, remind people what you have coming up on the calendar. You mentioned the candidate forums. I gather there'll be a gubernatorial one, but you said you're also doing scorecards on our General Assembly members. What is coming up in terms of meetings, gun shows, that kind of thing? People can find out more about VCDL.
Well, on VCDL.org, we got our calendar. You can go up there and check out things, exactly, when and where. All of that's up there. We were whenever there's a gun show, and there still are some occasionally going on, we're going to have tables there. Every third Thursday at 8 p.m. on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, VCDL YouTube channel, we have our membership meeting. We talk about all kinds of issues and stuff. Starts at 8 p.m. on the third Thursday. So we just had one, but we'll do it again every month.
And how does the listener that may have bought a firearm and said, "Oh, I want to be part of this"? These folks are here in Virginia. They understand Virginia. They get Virginia, and it's a group of Virginians. How can they get more information about membership?
Sure. Again, just go to VCDL.org. And there you can join the organization up there. You can get on our free email alert system, which people love. If you want to know what's going on, that's sort of the Paul Revere of letting you know what's going on around you when it deals to gun rights. And so you definitely want to be on that. Joining is $25 a year, and you can do it right online and help us fight the battle. And we don't drive you crazy for money every time you turn around either. Our organization is about winning. We need money, but we're teetotalers as best we can be with the money that we do have. Try to make it stress so we don't have to come begging. If we ask for money, we tell you why we're asking.
Oh, yeah, very transparent, absolutely there. Philip, thank you so much for joining us this week on Freedom and Prosperity Radio. It's frightening times, and my fear is that by 2022, in the midterms, it'll have all calmed down into a bad memory or perhaps a fever dream, and we'll forget when we go to the polling places because these are laws and people are writing them. As much as we'd like to make it not about politicians, in this particular case, it's politicians and the bureaucrats they empower, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we cannot. If we fall asleep, then we're gonna wake up to a real nightmare.
Yep, absolutely. Philip Van Cleave, president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League. Thank you so much for joining us. VCDL.org, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Coming up next on Freedom and Prosperity Radio, Dan Schneider, the executive vice president of the American Conservative Union, on Freedom and Prosperity Radio.